Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Creative Contact. I'm your host, Orion, the man who is obsessed with making great music and teaching you how to make your own. And in today's podcast, I'm going to switch things up a little bit, y'all. Listen, it's been a while. I've been doing these life updates. I like these a lot, but I want to see if I can maybe bring a little bit more, some different segments to this, different ideas around just things that I like to talk about: minimalism, creativity, productivity, nomad life, travel, relationships, all those sorts of things. First of all, so I apologize for the crazy sounds. That's just what it is. Welcome to Medellin. But I like doing the life updates, but I want to have almost like other segments to the show where you can submit questions. I source questions through my email list or through Reddit or some sort of other online domain where we can just talk more about stuff that I'm into and have it be more directed than just Kia's life updates. So that's what I'm going to try today. I have some questions here, and I'm going to dive into them in a little bit, but I figured I'd kind of condense Kia's like life stuff down into different things going on and also books that I've read recently that I wanted to share and kind of give my 2 cents on. So a couple books that I've read recently and a couple books I've given up on. The one book that I read recently that I loved, it was called Notes on an Execution. And I want to reach out to this author just because it's such an interesting book, but it's pretty much it's all fiction, but it's written as a guy. It's his last 12 hours before he goes to it's like, I forget what it's called, but it's pretty much when they inject you with the euthanasia, I think maybe what it is, when they kill you through injecting you, an injection. And it's his last 12 hours. And he's thinking about the different women that he murdered and different chapters of his life. But it's also this like detective novel of how he ended up getting put in prison. And it's just really interesting. And it's written so beautifully. Highly recommend that. I read it on the plane back from Florida. I recently got back from, guess where? From Florida, from seeing my family down there. And the whole plane ride, I couldn't put it down. So I read it, started reading it on the plane ride down and then on the way back. Highly recommend that. Another book I've been reading it's a collection of short stories by this really cool Cambodian author. His name's Anthony Cessna So, I think. Actually, pretty tragic story. He accidentally overdosed when he was 28, not too long after this book came out. But it's amazing. It's an anthology. If you're into Cambodian life and what that's like in California and kind of that second generation life, it's really cool. And he's just an amazing writer too. I felt like I could totally relate to the characters. One of my other favorite anthologies is called, my friend Dylan Owen's going to kill me because Young Skins, written by an Irish author. I loved that one too. So those are 2 anthologies, highly recommend. And speaking of Irish authors, a book I gave up on recently was called Beautiful World, Where Are You? By Sally Rooney. Just because, I don't know, it just ended up not being my cup of tea. I read about half and then I just ditched it. I'm at that point in my life where I'm like, life is too short to be reading books that I don't love. I'm reading a book right now that I'm obsessed with. It's like just a kind of a trashy thriller, but I like can't stop reading it. I'm just like so excited every night to dive into it. There's some other books too that I'm working on, but I'll talk to you about them once I actually finish them. So that's kind of I want to start now every month with the books that I read from the last month. So those are just some books I've been working on, reading through, and I'm reading Daily Stoic, but that'll take me a year, and a couple others I'm kind of chipping away at. But Kia's little book club, because that's how badass of a rapper I am, y'all. You got to have, if you don't have a little book club, it ain't real. So that's that. Kia's life. Trip to Florida was good. Florida is always just a weird place. It's this kind of mix between Latin America and, the U.S., and especially in Miami. But there's, just being back in the States, there's this weird thing where I never feel like I'm at home when I'm in the States. I always feel like I'm kind of like itching, like ready to get out of there. And I think part of it is it just feels, I think the prices to me just feel oppressive. Like I rented Yeah, I'll save you the spiel. It's a whole Kia rant, but I just feel like rent and everything is just like, I'm like, this is insane. Nothing feels like priced appropriately to me. Maybe that's because it's the whole location arbitrage blessing privilege of being an American living abroad for the last 4 years. So maybe there's that. But it just, the heat, it's humid. It's a cool place. Cool used loosely, but I don't know. Miami might be a place that I end up seeing myself at some point, but I don't know. It's a Central Florida, especially. It's a strange place. It's a very strange place, but it was really cool to see my family. Shout out my tia Cookie. We had a great time. We had some chats, some really rad life history and family history. That Cuban side of my family, I was able to get some really cool stories from. We had dinner. I've never had dinner with that side of my family before, so that was really special. And then spent some time with my dad. And that was cool. Just have kind of that one-on-one time with Pops to kick it, hear about his life growing up in Florida, and that was something that I think I'll hold on to for a really long time. So glad I did it. Also very glad to be back. I'm currently working on some projects I'm so stoked on. So one is, before I shoot this podcast, I've been starting this YouTube channel around productivity, all these things that I like to talk about. But rather than doing them in this kind of unscripted podcast way, I'm doing them in more of a scripted way. But I'm still figuring out what it's going to look like, the process, the whole thing. But I just know that that's stuff I like to talk about, so I want to dive into it more. And then these behind the scenes videos for the music has been a blast. I've had COVID the last week, so I haven't been able to shoot them, but I've just been spending a lot of time editing them, and I think they're going to be really cool, and I hope that you guys dig them. I've had a lot of fun. I like this, being able to see the process and show you all the process, because it's something that I think it's a fun kind of other dimension to the whole creative piece. Is not just like the finished song I give y'all every week, but more like how it came to be. So I'm excited to see where those go. And then I've got something kind of under wraps that I'm working on right now that's interesting, and I'm excited to talk to you about it, but I signed an NDA, so that I can't talk about it just yet, but hopefully sooner than later. So that's Kia in a nutshell. I'm here. I'm doing the damn thing. I got COVID again. This shit's like a new iPhone. I feel like I got to get every new one that comes out. I'm like, oh, there's a new update. I need to get it. And so let's do some Q&A, y'all. These are because I think I have like 8 people that listen to this show. I source these questions from Reddit. But if you have questions, I'd love to hear them. I'd love to start answering questions. I just like Q&A shows. I think it helps. It's cool because then it helps me source the material, and also I feel like I'm actually able to talk to you about exactly what it is you want to talk about. But I wanted to talk about creativity today and minimalism. So these are sourced from those subreddits. So this first one's by this guy or gal, Gigi Marzo. It says, a book to resurrect my creativity. Hey everyone, I don't know if that request is too common or too strange, but I'm looking for tips on a book that is very useful to generate new ideas and to train my brain. There's a few that I loved on creativity, and I think I'll talk about these a little bit later on, but one is War of Art. I talk about it all the time. And one I read recently was called Art and Fear. And this was they're just kind of cool sparks to get you to think about creativity differently. If you want a real, I don't want to say course, but it kind of is a course, I recommend The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. This is more of a, like, you can actually put into practice some of the things. It's not just like cool ideas that challenge your mindset, but it's a real actionable step-by-step. It's like a weekly course that really helped me reignite my creativity. Ideas on competition, marketing, just craft, all of it. I love that one a lot. So Artist's Way, War of Art, Art and Fear. Highly recommend. Billy Ransom, creativity and marketability. How do you straddle the line between wanting to be as creative as possible, but also wanting to be able to make a living from it? That's not wanting to go so far that you're basically off the grid away from what is known to be liked or not popular by a slight measure. So Billy Ransom, to me, this one is interesting. The reason I don't have fans really is because my marketing is trash, but maybe I'm just too much of a purist, and I like doing YouTube and learning about marketing in another way, but I don't like social media marketing, I guess is more my point. Social media and like the Instagram, Twitter, TikTok sort of a vibe. So I honestly don't think about marketing at all when I'm creating. I have been thinking about marketing a lot more recently because I like creating content and video content, but I'm like, how can I do this in a way that feels right to me? And that's where things like this happen, and YouTube and just other elements in that regard. But I don't think about marketing at all when I'm creating the thing. I'm not thinking, is this going to sell? I worry about that after I make the thing. Maybe that's why my career is where it is, but that's my 2 cents on it. I also do believe in like, I do and I don't, but this like the power of how good the thing is. Like, you gotta make good stuff. If for the marketing to work, the stuff also has to be good. Like, I've been doing a song a week now for almost 2 years and it hasn't gone anywhere, which to me, I think is like a sign that like the music just honestly isn't there yet. Like, my singing isn't there yet. Whatever it is, like there's a disconnect between the product I'm making and people get to consume it. And that's not a bad thing. Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, Russ has blew up, I think, in like 20 weeks or something like that, like half a year. And so for me, at this point, I do feel like I'm a really good place mentally of being removed from any of the external shit needing to work. So for me, it's like just doing the art, spending my days building things that's what I get off on. That's what I love to do. I wake up, I'm excited about it. I've done a lot of mental work, a lot of meditation, a lot of journaling to remove myself from needing that external validation. If that happens and stuff, cool, I'd love that. But I'm not in that place that's where I need it anymore. I've just kind of chalked it up that like this is life didn't go according to plan, and that's the way it is. And to accept that, and that it will never be what I wanted it to be, but that's okay. And that I still get to live a beautiful life and to do the thing. And to me, that's really important. And so to me, it's like, okay, if I'm removing from that needing it to sustain myself, how can I just lower my expenses to the point where I can have some sort of part-time gig, some sort of other online business, some sort of thing where I can just have more runway, more time to do what I love. And then eventually I do believe I'll get to the point where the songs are good enough that I'm able to create a living from it. But I'm not really overthinking the marketing just yet, the marketing piece of it. And that's just me. There's a million ways to skin a cat. You talk to Gary Vee, you need to make 3 TikToks a day. And I do believe that I could make better music than like a lot of what's out there right now, but I know it's going to take me time to get there. I think I'm getting there. Like, I'm still working on learning my mixing. I haven't really worked too much on learning new production, but I'm really, the 2 places I'm really keen, like focused on right now are singing and mixing. So I'm learning mixing. There are like these mixing courses, and it's like this asynchronous singing course that I'm doing. I do like warm-ups and drills and stuff like that every day for the singing, because I think those are the 2 things that would help take my music to the next level, or if the mixes were super rad, and also if I could sing better, I think it'd help a lot. I do believe I'll get there, but I haven't yet, and I'm cool with it. Okay, the next one is by Agent Vinod, Dealing with Writer's Block, the Ultimate Checklist. What do you do to overcome writer's block? Any actionable advice would be appreciated. Write more. This is from Seth Godin. He says, show me. People are like, I'm writing terrible things. He's like, show me your crappy writing. Like, I honestly, for me, beat block, writer's block, song block, any type of block, I just make more. Like, I just say, I'll create my way out of this. And I just treat it like it's less about feeling inspired and more about just like doing the thing in perpetuity. This one is by Profession 8774. Why? Okay, so we're switching into minimalism. Why do you identify as a minimalist? Aguacates. Why do you identify as a minimalist? I identify as a minimalist because it's changed my life. Like I said before about keeping overhead low. If you don't live beyond your means, then it allows, to me, wealth is more than just money. To me, wealth is things like time, love, autonomy. And I feel like I'm rich, like Scrooge McDuck, like dive into gold coins type of wealthy when it comes to these things. Autonomy, when it comes to things like freedom and time. Because I've just created this life for myself where arguably it's low stakes because there's nothing really to lose. I haven't really built anything yet that's worthwhile of note. But I believe that there's, for me, a real pressure in time. I think because of like, I have this weird blood thing going on and like a couple of near-death experiences that I just feel like time to me is very limited. And so to me, that's my currency more than like money in real life. I haven't made a ton of money the last few years. Like, and this is something I'm still working through, like maybe intentionally. I'm still working through my psychology, my relationship with money. But there's a reason I think why I'm able to create so much, and it's because I don't have a lot of stress in my life, and it's not because I have to answer to anybody. I've been able to build this kind of online business and support myself so that I don't have to do staff meetings, et cetera, et cetera. That said, I am toying with like creating something bigger that is a little bit higher stakes that would require more time and effort and stress. But because I feel like I'm starting to get to the point where I kind of want to play at a higher level. But how does this relate to minimalism? I wear only things that are black and white, pretty much I have like the uniform. I wear pretty much the same things every day and just have a very simple life. And because to me, again, my currency is those things outside of just money. And it allows me then to spend more time working on my creativity, working on other things I want to learn, like boxing and dancing and language learning and just these other things that are important to me. So minimalism, I think, is the big lever that I pull that allows me to live the life that I want. And that's why I identify as minimalist. Gratitude. This one's by Cool Beans. Cool Beans says, any tips in terms of how I can be happy with what I already have rather than continually wanting something better? Something that I just actually shot a video before this podcast on happiness research. And it looks like your happiness, you can control about 25%. It looks like there's like 50% is genetic, 25% is like luck, circumstances, and then you get this quarter to control it. And in that quarter of happiness, it comes down to three things, which are your purpose, your sense of connectedness, relationships, and like faith or spirituality, kind of like how you make sense of this kind of crazy life in that sort of like macro perspective. And controlling what you can control is really big. And to me, gratitude and feeling thankful is very much a practice. It's not just something that like happens to me. I have to be very intentional. Every morning I journal, I do some gratitude stuff, and I meditate. Like, unless I'm like with my family in Florida or something, almost like without fail, I do those things, and it helps me kind of get my day started on the right foot. Also spending time outside and like sunlight, exercise, drink water, etc. Like those are important too. But like be intentional about creating space to be mindful and grateful. Easier said than done, but that's helped me a ton. Okay, y'all, almost done. These are two that I thought were cool. The first one is, what's your thought process before buying something? And then what's the stupidest purchase that you made recently? My thought process before buying something normally is like, how much am I going to use this thing? Will this help me get to where I want to go? For example, I have most of what I travel with is like equipment for creating content because that's what I'm into. And so before buying stuff, I'm thinking about like, how can I travel with this? Is it lightweight? Is it portable? And then also, is this something that I will use a lot? And oftentimes, like, how else can I use this thing? So rather than it being just for like things that are almost like multi-purpose in a way. And what's the stupidest thing I bought recently? It's around here somewhere. It's a beat machine. Like it's like this thing that has like a bunch of colorful beat pads that you can like tap out and make beats on. But I just don't like making beats outside of the computer. Like, I don't know why. I'm just not physically connected to my production like that. And I knew that going into it, but I was like, well, I'm going to make these cool performance videos and stuff. And I got it, and I used it, I think, like one time. And so now it pretty much is just like making a cameo in my behind the scenes videos because it's cool and colorful and bright. But like, it was definitely a waste of money because I don't like to create like that. I'm an audio ninja. I like to create in the software. I'm just not a hardware guy. Unfortunately, it's just not how I roll. So anyways, all 8 of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know, 1, if you have questions, 2, if you like the format of this show, having it be more like Q&A based rather than just like Kia rambling about crazy life occurrences. But I think this could be cool. I just like questions. I like answering stuff. I like learning and then sharing. So this is kind of my MO. So let me know. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, I appreciate y'all. And hit me, Kia at Kia Orion. Slide in the DM at Kia Orion and shoot me your questions, and I'll check you on the next one. Peace.